Welcome to Do Hard Things. My name is Mike Dowling, and I get to help companies build businesses in the cloud. Each episode, I'll introduce you to an inspiring company, leader, or message that just may help you understand how doing hard things will take you to a new level. Thank you for finding me, and let's get started. All right. Welcome to another episode of Do Hard Things. We do these video podcasts for a simple reason: to help us put a face behind the logo of some of the partners that we work with and learn a little bit more about the people that are driving the business and the leadership with these partners as they do hard things in building their businesses to drive customers to the cloud. And today we're talking with Victor Raymond. He's the CEO of Triumph Technology Solutions. This is a guy that's had 17 years of great success. He created a successful software package for new businesses. He's also been involved in several successful acquisitions. And founding Triumph, he came up with the idea of a company that kept its head in the cloud so that other companies don't have to. And it's really a great pleasure to meet with you, Victor. I want to congratulate you on having the first new member of your family. And I look forward to having this conversation with you today.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate you inviting me to talk about how you do things hard, right? And listen, because if it was easy, everybody would do it, right?
That's 100%. Hopefully what we don't want to do is things doing them hard. We want to do hard things and make it not so difficult to do because we prepare for it. But you're right. If everybody could do it, it would not be that difficult and it wouldn't be worth doing.
Yeah.
So talk to me today a little bit about your background. Give us a little bit of insight into who it is behind the logo. I understand that you're really big in community stewardship, and I'm curious to understand your engagement with community and how that helps you as a leader. So tell me a little bit about that.
So from a community service standpoint, right, it had been instilled in me from a very young age, right, to help others. And at every opportunity in my life, whether it's been dialing for dollars, right, to help organizations that I have a passion, putting together events for passion projects that really pull at my heartstrings, I've always been instilled by my family and my friends to do those things. And that passion project that's most dear to my heart today is I sit on the board of directors of an organization called the Lighthouse. The Lighthouse has been around since 1893. It was founded in Philadelphia, which traditionally in Philadelphia in the late 1800s, there were more bars per capita in Kensington, Philadelphia than anywhere else in the world because it was such a big industry city. And this organization was founded to be an outlet for people so they didn't have to go to a bar.
Oh, you're kidding.
Right? We had the first restaurant that didn't serve alcohol in Philadelphia, in Kensington, for this reason. And it's become so much more over the years, right? The Lighthouse founded the first Meals on Wheels program in the United States, which is crazy. We have the largest privately held green space in the city of Philadelphia, right? And we have this 18 acres, and some people in the community call it the woods in the hood, right? Because if you drive past this, you would never think it was there. And it's been phenomenal to see an outlet for the youth in one of the hardest hit economic areas in Philadelphia that's plagued with drug addiction and desperation, despair. And the Lighthouse is that beacon of hope, right, in the city. And the reason why I wanted to get involved was, as a new father and as knowing that I wanted to have a family, I wanted to be able to give youth in Philadelphia the opportunity to do something positive so they weren't eventually selling drugs to my kids, right? And to our kids. And we have so many really good things happening at the Lighthouse.
So, what you're talking about is changing a whole mindset. These at-risk youths, they're in a world that they don't think they can ever escape, and training or training them to believe that they can get out, or give them the tools that allow them to see that there's a better opportunity for them that doesn't end in drugs. That's hard to do because there's all of this momentum that's already behind them on this is how it is. This is what it's like. This is what it's been like my entire life. How do you keep the momentum going to change this in any small way you can consistently?
It's tough,
Yeah.
right? Because when everything's going well, it's part like what I'm going to eventually talk about when it talks to, leadership principles and core values and things like that, is how do you keep going when it feels like such an insurmountable task to get something done?
Well,
and
that is the key here, because what I think you're touching on is what is worth doing. And we were kind of joking before we got on the call, but the reality is there are things that are worth doing, and almost every single one of them is almost impossible to do. They're so hard to do. And as you are picking the things that matter to you, I'd like to know a little bit more about the leadership that it empowers you with, how you actually then turn that into something that others, perhaps the people in your own company, look at as a source of inspiration to get them to do difficult things.
And I think it comes down to believing, right? Even if there's some place in your mind that it can't be done, having some place in there like, listen, I know that the odds are stacked up against us, right? But just like I said, that, if this was easy, nobody would do it.
Yeah.
Right. Or that not nobody would do it. Everybody would do it.
Right.
That there's a piece in me that's like, listen, we can make a difference. Right. When it comes to philanthropy and when it comes to business, like I know that I can have an impact, right? Or that I can have an impact on the community, right? An impact on the people that work for me, and an impact on my family and friends, right? Because it's putting it all together, right? If my family wasn't okay with me taking this entrepreneurial path, because there are things that come along with that, right? Long hours, hard work, being attached to everything, right? It being difficult to detach from the task at hand because there's so many moving pieces, right? And that's the hard thing to do, right? How do you balance everything? How do I balance the social issues that I want to make an impact on, right? How do I balance my family life? And how do I balance my business relationships, right?
Well, I think it's, I am so grateful to be in the role that I have here at AWS, because I get to interact with leaders of organizations all across the country and the globe who are people. It's not a corporation. It's not a machine. These are people that are trying to do things for their family, but what they end up doing is creating opportunities for others to help their families, to help organizations do what they're trying to do and solve their family issues. I mean, it's one good thing begets another good thing, and it requires somebody to take ownership of it, leadership of it, and keep the grist wheel turning so that people can continue to drive towards some sort of result that you're ultimately also trying to drive as well. And hearing you talk about this story, it does start with people who look at maybe community stewardship as an avenue, but they're bleeding into business. And I'm very interested in learning how you're taking your community focus and applying that to your own business, and how that's worked out for you, and the difficulties that creating a business actually create, and how you overcome them.
And I think it comes down to, right, I have a business partner, right? I didn't found Triumph Tech alone, right? I founded it with another individual, right? And I really took the sales side and he took the engineering side, and it was that perfect cohesion. But that's great, right? I needed somebody with another skill set. He needed somebody with another skill set, right? It wouldn't have been possible without both of us. Wow. But when choosing this person, right, I had been friends with this person prior to getting in business with him. And part of the reason why this match worked so well was because of our core values, right? And it's easy to have core values when everything's going well, right? It is. What happens when there's a fire, right? And you want to, position yourself as people of integrity, a company of integrity, right? And then fires start happening. And you say, well, maybe, I won't do this or I won't do that. And that's why it's good to have two people with the same core values, because we can become off track. And what I've found is that when things are on fire, like we're going to lead into the next part of this conversation about growth during the global pandemic, right? And one of us having a horrible idea, but trusting that person and telling them your horrible idea and them reining you back in. This is not a good idea. This isn't part of our core values, right? This isn't a smart business decision. And, we've had that happen multiple times over the course of years where we have to rein each other back in, and without having the same values, right? When things got off track, we wouldn't have been able to stay on the track and go into a different avenue that we didn't want to go into.
So let's maybe take a step back and talk a little bit about what Triumph Technology does, why you created the business, and your relationship with AWS, and some of the focus on core businesses that you're driving, so that the listeners can understand a little bit more about Triumph.
So Triumph Tech wasn't always called Triumph Tech, right? So my business partner, James Barlow, was a high-level DevOps consultant for SMB customers, startup customers, and a few enterprise customers. And I saw what he was doing. And I was involved in the staffing business at the time. And through the staffing world, I was able to see that, hey, cloud, and saw what he was doing and realized there was an opportunity in the marketplace because there was too much work and not enough good people to deliver this work. So me and him sat down and we had a chat, and I said, we should join forces. We should join forces and I can help you scale this business. And because he had never done anything like that, right? He'd always been a one-man show that was very good at what he did. And that's where I came in. And at the time, we were operating under JB Consulting. And we were based out of Philadelphia. And I have a family friend who is a very influential and wealthy individual in Philadelphia. And I go and sit down with him. And I tell him what we're doing. He gives me the time, right? Because of my family. Gives me the time, and I tell him what I'm doing, and I'm like, hey, can you make some introductions for me? And he says, sure, no problem. I love you. Anything you need, make it happen. What's the name of the business? I tell him, I say, it's JB Consulting, because it's James Barlow Consulting, right? We didn't want to change, for tax purpose, all that stuff. And he laughs at me. He goes, you are out of your mind. I'm not introducing you to anybody with a name like that. You have no brand, you have nothing. I walked out of that room with my tail between my legs. He goes, I'm not ready. He told me that I wasn't ready for what he could do for me.
Oh, that's hard to hear, isn't it? Yeah.
That was a hard thing to hear, right? I was gung-ho. I was going to go into this meeting. I was going to crush it. And I was going to walk out of there and he was going to make a ton of intros. And at the time, JB Consulting was going to go from here to here. Didn't happen that way. So I go back to James and I say, James, we got a problem. He goes, what? I said, our name stinks. He goes, what do you mean? It's my name. I said, listen, it's not, we can't market that. And I said, let's take a step back, right? We can't go from 0 to 1,000, and let's think of some ideas.
Yeah.
And he comes back to me a week later and goes, Triumph Tech. I said, why? He goes to talk about our personal triumphs and our triumphs with our customers. I said, love it. Triumph Tech, that's the name. About a week later, he comes back to me. He goes, my wife thought of this great tagline. We keep our heads in the cloud so you don't have to. I said, I love that. I immediately went and trademarked it, right? And that was the start of how Triumph Tech became
That's
Triumph
awesome.
Tech.
So it's a story of perseverance as well. You didn't quit. You read a lot about people who set off and try to do something and they run into a brick road or a brick wall and they stop right there. And very few people continue because it is painful. It's painful to hear that you're not ready or things of that nature. It's also difficult to hear maybe you don't have enough experience and you're not going to succeed this way, but you've got a great idea. And sometimes that also trumps what other people think. And what you've picked, the AWS cloud, specifically getting into the cloud, when you did, it's a thing that not everybody is doing still. I mean, there's a huge number of companies that are just barely touching the cloud and they are wondering what to do. The fact that you picked that so early, really smart move, and also difficult to do because now how do you make a business doing that? So congratulations to you on doing that. What do you specialize in when bringing people to the cloud, and what do you want the AWS sales team to know about Triumph Tech?
So Triumph Tech, right, is we were born out of James's DevOps consulting practice, right? So when we got involved in the AWS ecosystem, the first competency that we achieved was the DevOps competency, okay, right? Because that's what James knew, right? That's what we started hiring. And, so if we're talking about DevOps, we're talking about automation. We're talking about application modernization. We're talking about containerizations, whether it's ECS, EKS. That was our sweet spot, right? And it's transitioned into so much more, where we specialize in, of course, the DevOps space, migrations. We have our AWS migrations competency, data and analytics, machine learning, and really what Triumph Tech's big differentiator is, right? And I don't want to pigeonhole us into thinking that this is all we do, but our big differentiator from 99.9% of other AWS partners out there is that we're building high performance render farms in the cloud. And when we talk about this, people are like, oh, great, you're doing stuff for studios. It's so much more than that, though. We are delivering these solutions for product companies, right? That are creating a lot of digital assets, whether it's 4K, 8K, 10K images, or very high definition videos, right? And that's our big differentiator from a lot of other AWS partners.
Well, I love that you actually pick something, because many partners try to say that they can do anything because they don't want to not get involved in an opportunity. But I believe with the utilization of social media, marketing, advertising, everybody's going to be needing to do something similar to what it is that you're talking about, at least if they're creating products or they're in some sort of a manufacturing capacity. Is that right?
I don't know if it's necessarily manufacturing. I think some of the use cases that weren't traditionally thought about in this space is architectural firms, right? Architectural firms, we're seeing large manufacturers of products, right? I'm not going to mention any names,
Sure.
Because we have active projects going on with some of these corporations, where they're creating lots of digital assets for their marketing, right? I'm seeing digital marketing firms come to us.
Sure.
And a lot of this also transitions into game tech, right? Because it's the same theory a lot of times, right? But just different software packages.
So what's really cool is that you can enter the company from many different directions, through advertising, the marketing team, through the C-suite rather than coming up from the IT department. Is that right?
And that's 100% correct. And I think, that's something that differentiated us too, besides just this practice, right? That we had this studio in the cloud practice, where I remember last year we did a couple sales enablement sessions with AWS sellers talking about, for example, data and analytics opportunities, right? And where traditionally the easy sales motion that people think of is, I'm going to go talk to the CTO. I'm going to go talk to the CIO. And I'm like, listen, there's other entry points besides this, right? You guys are thinking about this incorrectly. Like, how about we go talk to sales and marketing teams? How about we go talk to data science teams, right? We talk to sales teams, right? With the ability to analyze data on AWS, right? Who are the people that are ingesting this data and going to utilize it? Guess what? Let's not just talk about technology. And I think that's the big differentiator.
Yeah, I love that.
And other people too, is what are your business drivers? And what are the business outcomes, right? That our technology solution is going to provide you, right? And that's where other entry points come in. We're like, listen, I might call with the studio in the cloud practice, for instance. I might want to reach out to a CFO because I have a more cost-effective solution, right? Sure. Than anybody else.
Yeah, I love that. As many tangents as you can to the outcome that a company is trying to achieve just creates the opportunity for more and more discussion across more and more of the organization. That does help. Now, all of that is great when in 2019, everybody was being able to go out and talk to people and meet companies and do face-to-face. People were probably able to see who Triumph Technology was. And then we had COVID hit in 2020. And then for all of 2021, the ability for us to interact face-to-face just went away almost overnight. I'm real interested in finding out from you as a leader of the organization, what did you do to help yourself prepare for COVID? And how did you keep your team motivated during COVID as the leader of the organization?
So I think it was a perfect storm, right? Where for us, for Triumph Tech, the pandemic was an accelerator for us. And we had a leg up over our competition. Part of the reason is that we were born remote. So we were born remote. We had never had an office, right? Our team was already distributed throughout the country. So for us, it became second nature. Now, that's great when you're a 25-person organization, right? It's manageable, right? You can talk to everybody as a leader, right? Whether it's a sales leader or an engineering leader, right? 25 people is doable, right? You can have, bi-weekly checkpoints, make sure everything's going in the right direction. The thing that was difficult, right, was to scale during the pandemic.
Right.
That was the difficult part. And the way we accomplished that was, I'm trying to think of the right words to really illustrate it, was to sell a dream of what Triumph Tech could be, right? To people that were coming on, and not just be talking about it, but actually do it. And the best way that I can describe Triumph Tech, right, to a potential employee or somebody looking from the outside in is, we treat our people like family, where we want to hear what's going right, what's going wrong, and everybody's ideas. And putting together that collaboration, right, has been the reason for the success, is listening, right? Because I feel like some leaders just talk because they want to be heard. Good leaders, right, say things for a reason and listen to other people. And that's what I've been really good at, right? Is I think I'm a pretty smart person, right? But in this world, there's so many people smarter than me. And understanding that and having the humility to understand that I'm not always the smartest person in the room. And where I have skills gaps, to hire people that are smarter than me, right? And then actually be open enough to listen to them and then make the change.
So what are you doing then to continue to keep that fresh outlook and grow your skills as a leader? How do you do that? It's great for you to be able to show your team how to be a leader, but what are you doing to continue your growth as a leader?
So my growth as a leader is just making sure that I'm making an impact in the organization, right? And that, listen, people do things for different reasons, right? Especially in this world. Some do it for money. Some do it for a goal. Some do it because of technology, right? The perfect business that somebody is involved with that wants to be very excited about it is when you encompass all of those things. Everybody can make a lot of money, right? We make a positive impact on our customers, on our skill set, right? And work on really cool stuff. And when you put all of those things together with good leadership, right, that people think they're actually being heard, it's a perfect storm for success.
So when you talk about success, it leads me to a quote. Have you ever read anything from Grant Cardone? He's a sales guy that has a big real estate empire.
Yeah, I've seen. I don't think I've read anything from him, but I've definitely seen some of his videos.
Well, he's got a book called 10X. He likes to 10X everything, and he writes that extreme success, by definition, lies beyond the reader's lies beyond the realm of normal action. Right? You need to be driven. You want to be like everyone else, then you'll settle for mediocrity. But success becomes your duty, your obligation, and your responsibility. How does that sound to you?
I think it embodies Triumph Tech. And I'm going to give you a little story, right? So a week and a half ago, and I just had a baby 2.5 weeks ago, right?
That's
awesome. And this all feeds into the story. So about a week and a half ago, somebody from AWS, they pinged me, and at 11 o'clock at night, just trying to put it into my box, just so I could see it the next day. And I messaged them back immediately. And they said, didn't you just have a baby and it's 11 o'clock at night? Don't you sleep? And I said to them, part of the reason for Triumph's success is sense of urgency, right? And I treat every email, right? Every phone call, every Slack, Chime message, like if it doesn't get answered in an expeditious manner, that Triumph Tech will go out of business tomorrow, which is a complete farce, right? But that's what I have to tell myself, right? To keep that sense of urgency up, is that everything matters, right? Whether it's the demand generation rep, right, who's just fresh out of college, or whether it's the worldwide head of a specific department, right? To have that same sense of urgency with everybody.
How do you balance?
And we've embodied that, right, on the whole team, right? Not just the sales team, the engineering team, the marketing team, right? Everybody.
So you align really closely with our leadership principle of ownership and bias for action, right?
And it's funny that you say that, because I remember we were doing an EBC, and there was an enterprise strategist from AWS on the call. And I knew, the basic AWS, values, right? And I didn't know all of them, right? And some of them were talked about that I'd never heard of before. And when I got done that call, I said to James, I said, listen, part of the reason for our success is that our core values are so aligned to AWS, right? That it's part of the reason for success, is that Triumph Tech's values, unknowingly, right, were AWS's values. Right. And that's part of our success, right? Is thinking like you guys and not even realizing that we were doing it.
So how do you continue to ensure that you're aligning and not separating from the core values that we have with your core values? What do you do to help your team do this? Because they're all virtual anyway. It might be difficult if you're all not on the same page in the same location.
So it comes down to a few things, right? So we have specific meetings on a weekly basis for every department in our organization, right? And I'm involved with those, my business partner's involved with those, to make sure that everybody's on the same page, right? And it also comes down to doing team building events outside of work, right? And I remember AWS reInvent this year. One of our competitors threw this huge party, right? And they spent $1 million on this party. And 95% of their employees weren't even there. They threw this party. I don't know, it was ego or whatever it was. And the next day I was sitting down with some people from AWS and they go, Vic, why didn't you guys throw a big party this year? And I said to them, listen, great parties, that's for ego, right? I don't need to do that. I'd rather take that $1 million, right? And at the end of the year, take all of my employees, their families on a vacation, right? Carve out a day for team building and let everybody have fun, right? And they go, that makes sense. And I said, yes, it's I need to think about my employees, right? Before I think about my customers sometimes, right? Because I've had some employees get barraged by customers, right? Over the course of time. And I went to AWS and I said, listen, I just want to let you guys know we're firing this customer. And they're like, whoa, what do you mean? And I said, they're treating my employees like second-class citizens. And I don't want to do business with people like that. Right?
So are those one of the more difficult decisions you have to make as a leader?
100%, right? Because we're talking about core values here and we're a business, right? We're not a nonprofit. Let's be realistic. Just like AWS, we're a company that's there to make money, right? But you have to balance money between happiness, and mental health, right? Because mental health is a real thing, right? As much as some companies don't want to think about that, it's something that I say to my employees, like, listen, you have to be able to tell us no. Tell us no. And they go, what do you mean? I'm like, the last thing I want to do is overwork you and you have no work-life balance, right? It's okay for me to do that, right? I'm the leader, right? That's why I'm in the position I'm in, because I will take on everything on my shoulders so my employees don't have to sometimes.
That's amazing. So as companies are built, there's people that have the experience of doing that, and they take that ownership on themselves, and don't empower their employees to also think that way. It's one thing to say you are empowered to make a decision that is, for your benefit. It's another for the employee to actually believe that they're empowered to do that. So I'm curious, have you ever run into a situation where it was a difficult decision? The employee didn't believe that if they made a decision that might look negative because they weren't being treated appropriately, were you able to help that employee with the decision they made and help them make the right decision?
To be perfectly honest with you, we've been transparent enough with everybody where when they're empowered to make the decision, right? But they might come to us and say, like, here's what I'm thinking, right? I don't want to make the wrong move. And I said, listen, if it's in the best interest of the company, there isn't a wrong move.
Right.
Right. And part of what we do, right? And it wasn't my idea, right? It was one of my employees' ideas. And we implemented it the very next day, right? During our weekly stand-up, is give us employee gripes. And I want you guys to be brutally honest, right? What's wrong with Triumph Tech? Because we don't claim to be the best in every area, right? I give people, before they come here, the anti-sell on why they shouldn't come here, right? Here's all the really great things about this organization. Here's the things that I think could use some work. We want you to come on board, right, to help with those things that need some work. But be honest with us, right? We're in the business of not hiring yes men, right? Worst thing you could do, right, on an interview with me or any of my other people is yes me to death. Because we don't want those type of people. We want the people that are going to be brutally honest, because I'm the type of person, if I feel some type of way or have something on my mind, like, you're going to know it, right?
Yeah.
Good, bad, or indifferent. And we want to impart that on other people. And, going back to the gripe, right? Give me the gripe, But it's one thing to just give me the gripe because we want to, tell people that we're empowering them. It's another thing to actually take that gripe, internalize it, and make a decision to change
Well,
what those employees have a problem with.
that's key right there. And, I was kind of leading you to maybe the next question, which was going to be, what characteristic do you believe that every leader should possess? And while you are the leader of the organization, I believe that you've empowered your employees to all think as leaders as well. What is that one characteristic that you believe they should all possess in order to achieve success?
I think it's honesty.
Honesty?
Right? I think it's honesty. And the reason why I say honesty, right, there's so many traits that I could pick out. And the reason why I say honesty is because when we're doing something that we could be doing better, right? For the organization to get better as a whole, like the employee needs to be able to trust, right?
Yeah.
That their honest feedback isn't only going to get listened to, but is going to get acted upon. And I tell everybody, listen, 99.9% of the time when you bring me something, if it makes business sense, right? And it makes sense to the leadership team, like it's going to change, right? You're very rarely going to get overruled, right? And I think the team has heard it. And I see our general slack, right? Where if something's not being done properly, somebody in the organization is like, hey, this can be done better. Let's do this, right? And then let's implement. And that's a great thing. And I think if you were to ask anybody, right, this same question on your thing, I don't think they'd say honesty, right? I think there'd be other things, hunger, whatever that trait is. And I think that's what differentiates us, right? Is like, that's what I want to see. I want people to be honest.
Well, that's the whole reason why I like to have these kinds of discussions, because I think it's important for us to first understand a little bit about who the people are that are working with our customers, that are driving AWS decisions, that are helping companies make the difficult decision to move to the cloud, that are building new businesses and practices in a not very easy to build environment, right? This is all new to a lot of people. And so I think it's empowering to understand that there are people in our partner organization that are on the front lines, not only building a business for AWS, but building it for their employees and the customers, and helping the customers make those decisions. And I think that they would love to hear that one of their core requirements for leadership is honesty, because it makes a lot of sense. You have to be real. You have to earn trust. And one of the biggest things that we have for a leadership principle at AWS is you have to earn trust. And earning trust requires you to continuously be honest about the solutions that you're offering. Sometimes it's not the best decision. You should be honest about delivering that. And that maintains the ability for a customer or an AWS employee or anybody to continue to extend their trust, because you're keeping that, you're keeping that alignment. So I think it's a great response to that question. And I'm excited to have people hear that from you.
And I appreciate that, Mike. And listen, it's been a journey, to say the least.
Yeah.
Right? The best way to explain what Triumph Tech has done in the past 24 months is we've built a rocket ship while flying it, right? And think about that. How do you build something, right, where just exponential growth? And I think that's why we've worked so well with a lot of our customers, right? Because we understand the pains that they've gone through and how we overcome those pains, and how can we embark some of that knowledge on them, right?
Yeah,
and
I think that's amazing. What kind of growth have you experienced in the last 24 months?
we saw 600% last year.
Wow.
And I was sitting down with you in Las Vegas, and I told you this, right? And you go, well, what do you think you do in 2022? And I said, honestly, another 600%. You're like, no, that's impossible, right? And honestly, I'm looking at the beginning of the year already. We're 2 months in. I don't think my ridiculous assessment, right, was wrong. And I think it takes bold leaders sometimes, right, to set goals and strive towards them. It's just like last year when we sat down and we did our partner business plan with AWS. I started throwing numbers out there, and my business partner goes, "Stop promising them this. We are not going to do it," right? And that's where it makes sense, where you have to have somebody to, be the sounding board. Like, listen, see my vision. It's going to happen. Guess what we did with every single one of those numbers that we told you guys?
Yeah.
We tripled them.
Amazing.
Right. And listen, I took those numbers this year and I put a double on it. And I think realistically in my head, we're going to triple the numbers that I gave. Right. And talk about, what this segment's called here. Right.
Yeah. Doing hard things. Not only that, doing things that haven't been done before, which is awesome. So you've got the culture of possibility.
And 100%. And, another big differentiator between us and a lot of our competitors is that we're 100% fully self-owned, right? And which means we don't have a master behind us, right? Saying that you can do this, you can't do that. You need to just concentrate on profits, knowing that there's an exit, right? Which gives us the ability to put the customers first.
Yeah.
Right. I'll tell my employees sometimes, right, that are scoping out engagements for our customers, because they come from other organizations and they were taught that you need to grab as much money as you can from this customer. And I'm like, no. There's no one size fits all for us, right? There's no set profit margin that we're willing to take or not take to do business with somebody, right? I have enabled them to make independent decisions, along with saying like, hey, is there more opportunity here? Every deal doesn't have to be a home run, right? Hit the single sometimes, right? Don't go for what you'd love to as a salesperson, right? Or a pre-sales engineer to get your commission on. Think about, hey, would you rather get something than nothing and help a customer and make a long-term customer? And our customer retention rate is 95% over the past 6 years.
Oh, that's incredible.
And that for a reason, right?
Yeah.
95% of our customers come back for another engagement at some point in time.
Wow. So I'm very excited because we've got a couple of other options for folks to understand a little bit more about what Triumph Technology does. One of them is a technical view, which we can talk to some of our solutions architects on the deployment of a key solution that you drive. Another is a business point of view, which is a 5 to 10 minute overview of what Triumph Technology is doing and why they're doing it and why you want to know them, specifically for a key play that you're driving. And I think your solution that you talked about earlier about rendering in the cloud would be a great discussion topic. I think that we've got an opportunity for a number of follow-on discussions to do two things. One, to get people really entrenched into just how awesome it is to work with Triumph Technology. And secondly, so we can keep track of your success and see how you're evolving. Even in 2022, that's going to throw us a ton of curveballs. We're already in one right now. And I'd love to see how you take the leadership reins and navigate what we're doing this year. I'm excited to hear that story.
And we'd love to come back on and do this in another year, so I can tell you that my 600% became 800.
Oh, we should do it before a year's up, man. I want to see what's happening halfway through the year.
Perfect. We'd be honored to. I really appreciate you having me, Mike.
Hey, listen, I appreciate you taking the opportunity to do this. This is the first one that we've done this year, and I'm looking forward to doing a lot more. Congratulations on being a new dad. I'm very interested in learning a little bit more about the Lighthouse board that you're on, and would love for other people to be aware of it as well. So we'll provide some information when we drop this episode. And if you could share that with Daniel, we can get it into a little bit of a piece of information that we'll share on LinkedIn, perhaps. And I'm really interested in following your journey. So let's stay in touch, okay?
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate it.
Victor, have a great evening. And Danny, thank you for helping set this up. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Looking forward to next steps.